Welcome to the Strategy Sherpa Show, a series of organic discussions between hosts David Chavez and a variety of notable business leaders centered around their most significant failures and how they handled those challenges, so listeners can learn from their most teachable moments and apply the lessons to their organizations. Now, here's your host, David Chavez.
Hey, everybody. This is David Chavez. This is the Strategy Sherpa Show. And we have a great show for you today, but I'm going to jump into a few things that I want to make sure I cover. First of all, we have a webinar on the 13th. That's this, I think this Thursday. Yeah. And it's Mastering Time Management to Prioritize and Thrive. Lisa Jane Vargas, who will be doing that workshop, she is an expert in time management and discipline around time management. So very informative workshop. It should be a very good opportunity to get back some of your time. Scaling Up workshop, Warren Sager and I are doing that in San Diego on June 25th. I think we only have a few tickets left because we sell 20 tickets to these events and usually about 15 people end up showing up. But we have a few tickets left. I think only 2 or 3, if I'm not mistaken. So, and we're going to have that in San Diego down by the beach. And so great time. If you want to come in a little bit early, you could actually spend the weekend in San Diego, which that's never a bad thing. So just bringing those two things into play. And now I would like to introduce Tom and Tom Neyhart. Is that correct? Did I say your last name correct?
Neyhart. We're like the diehard batteries. We never give up.
I gotcha. Sorry about that. Welcome aboard. You came in on the last minute, so I didn't get a chance to practice your name with you. So, tell the audience a little bit about yourself, because you and I haven't worked together. You know, one of our coaches, Warren Sager, and he invited you onto the show, and love having you here. Did a little bit of research on your company, but why don't you share a little bit about yourself first, and then a little bit about your company?
Sure. Warren Sager, great guy. And man, I want to go out to San Diego and hang out on the beach with you guys for the scaled up, because that guy knows how to scale it up. I've been friends with Warren for 15 years, and boy, I've seen him do a lot of scaling. He's something else. I'm Tom Neyhart. I guess I've always been a bit of a serial entrepreneur. I started selling seeds when I was 7 years old so I could get a skateboard, and it just kept going from there. And, I tell people all the time, my wife, Lisa, and I, who founded PosiGen, we've always been serial entrepreneurs, always owned 4, 5, 6 businesses, a couple of them doing great, a couple of them not so great, a couple of them middling along. And, until PosiGen came along, we always had our hands in a lot of different pots. But, we started PosiGen post-Katrina. We really wanted to do something for the community and reinvest in the community and help the families that needed it the most. And boy, it turned into a lot bigger than what we ever thought. We thought we were going to be in the solar business as a kind of a sideline for 3 or 4 years, and fast forward 13 years, and hopefully close to $400 million this year. It's all consuming for us now.
Yeah. So you own a solar company, correct?
Yes, we have PosiGen Solar and Energy Efficiency. We're a residential solar company that's focused on helping low to moderate income families save money. So our model is vastly different than anyone else out there. Every time we install solar, we also do energy efficiency to reduce the consumption in the home. We don't ever check anybody's FICO score or debt to income ratio. We figured if we can save people money, we become a utility replacement. So we really focus on the underserved communities of color, low income communities. And it took a long time for us to get traction. People thought we were a bunch of wingnuts out there. And, now we're one of the largest solar companies in the country, and we're really delivering on our promises across 14 states now.
Well, that's outstanding. 14 states. Which of the states are you in, just in case somebody's listening and they want to look you up?
Sure. So organically, with our direct business where we sell it and install it ourselves, we're in Louisiana, Mississippi, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, moving into New Hampshire as well. And then we have channel partners where we work with them, people, like-minded solar companies that want to help families that they couldn't help before. and we're in California, and we're in New York, and we're in West Virginia, and I know there's another state or two up in the Northeast that we're servicing as well. And if we're not there yet, we're going to be there soon.
Oh, very good. Sounds like you got a great geographic distance, Louisiana to the Northeast there.
Yeah, we do. We're, I'm a Louisiana boy. I lived down here for 42 years, raised my kids, and I hate to say it, I got 6 grandkids down here now. But so we started here in Louisiana. We built a really good business model here, and then we started to export it into different states. We've been, very, very lucky that we've made some great partnerships along the way. The Connecticut Green Bank, the Philly Energy Authority, the DC Green Bank. I mean, all these groups that we've been able to work with to be able to deliver our product and deliver savings into our customers' homes. And to give you an idea, we saved about $14 million net for our customers last year. That's after they pay us. That's money back in their pockets. Average customer put about $620 back in their pockets last year.
Wow. First of all, I love that you're helping ordinary people or people who are less fortunate get some of the benefits of having the solar, because getting and producing your own power is actually a good thing. But at the same time, you're helping a lot of people actually save money with this too. And I've never really seen those two things combined in a solar company. Are people starting to copy you?
Yeah, we're getting some people out there that are taking a look at our model. In the past, people said in the solar industry said, well, I don't want to do energy efficiency because that reduces the amount of solar I can sell somebody, right? Because you're reducing the amount of consumption in the home. And I don't believe that you can do one without the other, right? You have to address this, especially when you're in some of these communities where you've got a lot of older housing stock. Down here in New Orleans, we could be working on a 110-year-old shotgun house. Up in Connecticut, we might be an 85-year-old Cape Cod. And these houses are just sibs, and doesn't matter how much power you create, they still have high utility bills. And we've seen, $380 utility bills for a 1,300 square foot house here in New Orleans in the middle of summer, trying to cool it off. And prices are going up, and climate change is real. If you haven't, looked at all the records we're setting for heat and the storms that are coming through, so anything that we can do to reduce that, but we have to deliver that savings back to the customer, right? That you have to be able to deliver something that's tangible to the families that need it the most. And, look, if you make $150,000 a year and I save you $50 a month, you probably spend that at Starbucks on the weekend. But if you're a working class family, and you got a household income of $40 or $50, maybe $60,000 a year and a couple of kids, $50 is the difference between paying for, Jimmy to play baseball, school supplies, it's groceries. I've had people tell us that when they open their utility bill, it dictates to them how much they can spend in groceries every month. So, a lot of people live very, very much paycheck to paycheck. So putting that money back in the pockets really makes a difference.
Yeah, I love that you're doing that too. And I think it's a added benefit. I mean, I think they get the benefit of the reduced solar, the reduced cost, but then to actually get a little bit of a check back too. That's great. So on the Strategy Sherpa Show, what we do here is we're a little bit different of a show, because I've listened to a lot of shows where they're telling me how great business owners are and how successful they've become, and you have a lot of success. I can see that. And you said your revenues. Did you share your revenues at the beginning? Because I thought I heard them.
Yeah, we expect to do over $400 million this year.
Okay, so you're a $400 million company. How many employees do you have now?
Around 750 direct employees, and between subcontractors and the rest, probably somewhere in the 1,200.
Okay, so you have quite a few employees. Okay, so you have a lot of lives. I always multiply the number of employees by 3, and that's how many families people you're actually feeding, if you will. That's the way I sort of think about it, even when I'm running my company, even my own company, because I have to make sure they all eat. And so you have this company, and we talk about on this show about things that we didn't do as well as we thought we were going to. And at the time, we thought we were geniuses when we were making this decision. And it just went haywire on us because, Tom, it sounds like you've been in business a long time. You know as well as I do, we learn a lot from these mistakes, right? And it makes us a better business person overall. And so, I wanted to take a few seconds and get you started with sharing your the thing that tripped you up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, David. If you start out as a small business, the number of mistakes you make along the way, we could fill a couple tombs with the mistakes that I've made over the years. But it's like you said, you don't get any better if you don't make mistakes, right? You really learn from those mistakes, and you're able to look back on it. Yeah, for me, thinking about just PosiGen and how we approach things, our business really took off because we had a very interesting model that nobody else is doing, and we struggled to get financial partners early on. The mistakes that we made were when we finally decided that we were going to expand and we wanted to bring in outside capital, was really underestimating what it was going to take and overestimating our ability to execute. And when I say that, you sit down and you create a financial model and say, all right, I'm going to grow this amount over the next 3 years, and it's going to take $20 million. And when you're doing that as a business owner, you look at something and say, yeah, we can make that work, and we can make this work, and we can save money here. And you're thinking about asking somebody for money. So you want to show the best scenario possible, right? You want to shine the apple before you put it in front of somebody and ask them to buy it. And when you do that, you're doing a disservice to yourself, but you're also doing a disservice to your investor, because you're not looking at, nothing ever goes perfectly right. What are all of the things that could go wrong? And when you start to pull those in, I tell people nowadays, whatever your projections are, probably cut them down by somewhere between 25 and 50%. Whatever your expenses are, raise those. And whatever number you come up with, don't ask for that amount. Go out and ask for 50% more, or even double that amount, right? Because then you're being realistic, and then you're under promising and over delivering to your investor, and you're not having to go back out in the marketplace after you just failed to deliver what you promised the first investor. And I think that was our problem, right? We said, we're going to go into some additional states. We're going to expand our footprint, and everything's going to happen just perfectly because we know how to do it everywhere. And we well undershot what our monetary needs were going to be. We didn't achieve what we said we were going to achieve because everything had to be perfect for us to do that. And then we ran out of money, and we ran out of money too soon. And then what you say is, well, I want some more money. And people say, well, how did you do with the first money you got? Say, well, yeah, didn't really do very well with it. That makes it so much more difficult, right? That costs you equity in your business. That costs you the investors' trust in you. Those are the things that really hurt our company early on. And look, thankfully, over the years, we brought in some really good investors that have taught me a lot, but also believed in the company if they didn't always believe that we were going to be able to deliver at the level that we said we could. And that's what I've learned the most over the last 8 years since our first equity raise.
Yeah, that's great. Being a CPA, I've worked with Arthur Andersen for a number of years, and then I started my own CPA firm and had about 1,600 clients around the world. And I would tell you that your comment about people over doing their projections is such a common thing. It's pretty amazing when you actually see how often it actually happens. And I think you said it really well. It does erode the trust. But hey, we are a live radio show, and it is time for us to take a break. And so, Tom, we're going to take about a 3-minute break, or 2-3-minute break, and then we'll be back after these messages. This is the Strategy Sherpa Show. This is David Chavez, and I'm here with Tom Neyhart. Did I say that right?
Neyhart.
Gosh darn it. I even said it to myself 4 times, and I still got it wrong. All right, we'll be right back after these messages, and we'll talk to Tom and unpack his little statement he just made. We'll be right back. David.
Welcome back to the Strategy Sherpa Show with David Chavez. Have a question for David or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show.
Hey everyone, this is David Chavez. This is the Strategy Sherpa Show, and I have Tom Neyhart. Did I say
Perfect?
I got it right that time? All right, very good. I had to do it right at least once on the show, Tom. I would feel like I wasn't doing my job if I didn't say it right at least once. All right. So you unpacked a little bit, and I love your company. You have a solar company. You're providing solar to economically deprived people. So you're allowing them to take some of the benefits of solar and actually writing them checks back, which I love to hear too. I mean, that's probably a powerful statement when you're able to say that. And so you talked a little bit about you made a mistake a lot of companies make when they're going out to the equity markets, because you're growing a company, not just having a lifestyle business. You're growing a company, and you decided to use the capital markets to help you with cash and equity so you could scale quicker, because you obviously had a business model that you found to be very, very valuable. Is that a fair comment?
That is a fair comment.
Yep. And so oh, go ahead.
No, that's all right. Go ahead.
So then you decided you were going to go to the capital markets. So the first thing you do when you decide you're going to go to the capital markets is you put together a plan to go to the markets, and how much money do I need to raise? All these questions that I have to answer before I go to the market. And so you created some projections. You went out to the market. How much did you raise? Do you mind saying?
Yeah, our first raise was $20 million. And two things. One is, I do want to correct one small thing. We don't write people checks back. Their net savings is off their utility bill after they pay us. We don't actually write them a check, with the exception of Connecticut. We do up there. But yeah, so we decided to go out to the capital markets. The first thing you do when you go out to the capital markets is you find a broker or a banker, right? Somebody that knows all the players. And I think that's the first place that you need to really spend a lot of time with. We started talking to some people saying, hey, we think we want to go out and raise some money, and never having been in the equity market before. You talk about raising money, and it's a bit nebulous. How are we going to raise money? We're going to get loans. Are they going to invest in the business? Are they going to invest in us? How does all that work out? And somebody says, hey, I know this great person. She's a banker. She does this all the time. And you get introduced to them. And of course, they're salespeople too. Oh, this is going to be so easy. You have a great business. It's going to take us like 90 days, and we're going to get you this big check, and you're going to be off running. And they paint this picture that is just, and as a small businessman, you're like, wow, you guys are going to be able to do this for me so quickly, right? And all my problems are going to go away. And that's where you have to put on the brakes, right? Right then and there, when you are deciding who is going to represent your business, and whether you're raising $500,000 or you're raising $200 million, you have to have that right team. And that right team is going to be very realistic, and they need to tell you what the pitfalls are. And the first pitfall is whatever schedule they tell you, it's going to take twice as long, right? If they tell you it's 120 days, you figure it's going to be 240 days.
Most
but
definitely.
Think about how they approach your business. And if they're just out there trying to polish the apple the whole time, then they're not being realistic either. And I think that, so as a business person, I own my business, and it's up to me to present my business the correct way. And I can't blame anyone else if I don't do that. But a broker, a banker should be injecting reality into everything that you're doing and pushing back and having a real conversation. They need to be a partner with you. And I could say, and I'll use their name on the air, when we went back out and we decided that we had really shot ourselves in the foot. And for every transaction since then, we've worked with a great group called Marathon Capital. And my friend David Kirkpatrick and Josh Kornfeld over there are the first ones to say, hey guys, this looks a little too rosy. Let's go back and rethink this. Hey guys, we're going to go out and we're going to do the road show, and the road show should take 3 weeks, but let's plan on, 6 to 8 weeks. And then we're going to ask for, letters of interest. And then we're going to ask for people to commit. And then we're going to ask for pricing. And this whole process is not going to take 120 days. This process is going to take us 6 months. And then we're going to due diligence, and then we're going to close. And all that takes time. And you have to plan to survive that time financially. And if you don't do that, then you end up taking bridge loans. And bridge loans are very expensive. They put your company in a bind because they're tying up assets you don't want tied up. And then the incoming investors looking at that saying, wait a minute, you couldn't even plan on how long it's going to take you to close. Maybe your company's not worth this, it's worth less. And then again, you're giving up more equity.
Yeah, let's unpack some of this stuff, because you said a whole lot, and I'm sure some listeners may listen and understand what you're talking about, but a lot probably don't, because a lot of people stay away from the capital markets because they think that they're going to come and take their company or something like that. You and I both know that's not true. They actually want you to run it. Usually they're investing in you. So the first step, I have to go out and find somebody to help me. So there's two different types of people out there in the market. There's investment bankers, and then investment bankers are bankers that handle transactions that are usually greater than 5 to 10 million, right? So they're the guys who are a lot more sophisticated, but they are still salespeople, like you said. So you have to be careful, because, and I love how you talked about that. They say they're going to do it in 3 months. Look, I was a CPA. I had 1,600 clients at my CPA firm. I was a valuation guy. All I did was deals. I was a guy who did due diligence on transactions. And I found it amazing when people would tell me, oh yeah, we're going to get this money in 30 days or 60 days. And that was comical. Even 90 days was a little laughable, because I've never done a deal less than 6 months. Never, not one. And I don't care what they told me when we started. Oh, yeah, we're going to have money in a month. And I was like, okay. And nothing ever happened before 6 months. So I love that you said that. So there's the investment banking side. Then there's business brokers that handle smaller transactions. And usually investment bankers do both raising equity as well as selling businesses, larger companies, right? And so you went to an investment banking firm, and then you talked about being very careful of who you hire, because there's a lot of silver-tongued devils out there that want to promise you the moon and deliver nothing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when you do your due diligence, of course, meet with them, talk with them, take a look at other deals, of course, talk with them about their fee structure, because fees are all over the board out there. When it needs to be paid, how much it needs to be paid, is it how much is on a success fee, how much is a non-refundable retainer, those types of things. And don't hesitate to push back and negotiate. Just because they hand you a sheet and says this is what they want, doesn't mean that's what you're going to give them. The other piece is, in addition to calling the references that they give you, get on the internet and search out all of the different deals that they've represented people on. And call a couple people that they didn't tell you to call, right? And ask them how it went, what were the downfalls. And look, every single broker, every single investment banker is going to have some people that were unhappy. So, having somebody that said they were very frustrated doesn't automatically exclude them if they have a number of people that said that they were very good. But really spend the time on that, and spend the time on the process, and really break down the process. Who is your audience? Who are you going to go to? Are you looking for family offices? Are you looking for venture capital? Are you looking for investment capital, growth capital? It's very different depending on who you're going out and talking to. And what does a good deal look like? If it's growth capital, then you have to have a certain amount of EBITDA and revenue already. If it's venture capital, what kind of VC firms are you looking to go to?
Yeah, and I think those are all really good decisions, and having somebody that can really help you understand some of those things is really important too. And but I love how you're talking about it, and how you're talking about making that decision. So you find your investment banking firm, and you decide you're going to go out and you put together projections that obviously turned out to be pretty wrong.
Yeah, they were overly optimistic. They assumed that, we would go into new markets and the sales pattern would look like the sales pattern that happened where I live and where I run it every day, right? So never believe that what you do every day is going to happen with somebody else doing it every day somewhere else, right? So, we are drivers of our businesses. Every one of us that goes and opens a business is probably the best salesperson for their business. They're the best customer service person for their business. They understand it more than everyone else. And when you go to open up and expand, now you're asking other people to do what you do. And you shouldn't believe, now look, there's a million people out there that can do what I do better. But when we're out hiring people, we shouldn't believe that every one of them is going to be able to function at the level or have the experience or be able to do what we did. So be conservative, understand there's differences in every market, right? Installing solar in Louisiana is vastly different than installing solar in Connecticut or installing solar in Washington, D.C. or New York, and the approvals and everything else. You've got to go up to market. You've got to understand them. You really should be in a market for 3 months, figuring out everything that you need to do every single day to be able to execute before you hire somebody that's going to be out there and selling your product and trying to deliver your services. You have to understand that. And when you put together those projections, then sit down and bring some people in and start to punch holes in it. We brought in a great group called Afterburner to help us when we were starting to accelerate our growth. And one of the things that they talk about is debriefing. Every time you do something that works out right, why did it work out right? Every time you did something wrong, don't close the book on it and say, let's move on. Let's go back and dissect it and figure that out. And when we put together a plan, you bring in a red team and say, punch every hole in this that you can possibly think of. And without being angry, then defend your position, right? So Bob comes in and says, Tom, I don't think that you can do this. And ask them why you don't think I can do it. And then don't be angry and say, well, damn it, I know I can. Sit down and intelligently think about what are the reasons that would prevent me from being able to execute this, and how would I react to it, and what would that happen, right? You're going to spend more money than you think. Your sales are not going to hit what you think, right? And then what your net need of capital is going to be is really dependent upon that. And that's where you have to have an ironclad plan when you go out, if you're going to be able to deliver on your promises.
Yeah, and I love how you're talking about it. As a CPA and being involved in this on my end, it was always interesting how projections were done. The projections that I've seen that were done, and even for some large deals, I think the largest deal I worked on was $1 billion transaction where we were buying out a company, and how I usually describe it with people, I'll have to do that on the other side because we're close to a break right now. But Tom, I think that you're adding a lot of value to the listeners right now, because I think that a lot of people go into this with very optimistic eyes, like they have the best thing known to man and everybody's going to want to buy into this thing. And you have to believe that way if you're the entrepreneur, but not everybody's going to look at it exactly the same way you did. And there's some complications with that I think you ran into after you got the money and you started to perform on that. So we're going to take another break and we'll come back for our final segment with Tom in just a moment. This is the Strategy Sherpa Show. This is David Chavez with guest Tom Neyhart.
Welcome back to the Strategy Sherpa Show with David Chavez. Have a question for David or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show.
This is the Strategy Sherpa Show, and I'm here with Tom Neyhart. That was 3, Tom, out of 5 so far.
Neyhart, an N, Neyhart.
Oh, I said Neyhart. Did I not? I said Neyhart. Did not. I wish I would have done 50%, David. I just wish, Tom, I would have done that on purpose instead of on accident.
That was too good.
Oh my goodness. All right. All right. Well, I have to take a humility pill right now, so I'll be right back. All right. Tom, thank you. Sorry about that. Die Hard. Because you said to me several times, it's Die Hard, Die Hard, Die Hard, Die Hard. I said it right. Now I'm back in the toilet. I'm on the less than 50% side, so I'll come back. All right. So Tom, like part of doing this is when you're doing this is very intimidating process, right? When you're first doing it.
It is.
Sounds like you really understand it now, but when you're first doing it, it's very intimidating. You talk to a couple of these investment bankers, they're selling you very hard. And most likely, if they're telling you that you're going to get a deal done before 6 months, run is what you're saying.
Right.
They're probably not competent. You could be saying, hey, I need a deal done sooner than that. Well, that's hard money. That's not, and you talked a little bit about that. Your interest rate's probably going to be about 20%. You're probably going to pay 4 points on that deal. So 20 million, that would be a very costly deal. So you have all these things coming into play. And one of the things that you talked about is that you didn't end up meeting your projections. And when I talked to business owners about this, it was really interesting being a CPA because people would come in and I would start to ask them about their projections, like, well, where did you get these numbers from, right? And the numbers were taken from numbers that they assume they can get from their gut. Now, you know as well as I do, because you started companies from your gut, because we go out and we start talking to people and we get a lot of market intelligence and data from that. And our guts are pretty good when we start a company, but as we start to scale it, and especially into other geographic areas, our gut, we're still using that as our primary method of determining the revenue projections, right? When it really needs to be market data for that market. And how I usually talk about it is you have market, marketing, and selling. Entrepreneurs start with selling. They end up doing a little bit of marketing, but they never go back up to market like they really should to understand what the market circumstance are like. And you talked about it in a very interesting way, because I think it's really important how you talked about it. You talked about not only did I need to understand the market for buying, but I also need to understand the market for my operations, because every market is a little bit different. And there's maybe cost in there that I don't understand in Louisiana because those rules don't exist there, but they exist in Connecticut.
Yeah, it's so much different as you go from state to state, and regulations, we call it AHJs, right? The authority having jurisdiction. That's just where you get your permits from, right? So all those things build up into it. And when you talk about, you're right, as an entrepreneur, we're the salespeople. It's really funny. My wife and I, Lisa, we founded all these companies, and it's worked for us. We worked together all of our lives, because I go out and sell everything, and then she's got the back of the house and she takes care of the customers and makes sure everybody's happy. But there's so many more pieces of it as you start to expand. And when you take a look at a business like ours, we got the whole sales and marketing piece over here, but then you have product delivery, right? That's the operations. That's installing the systems. That's getting the systems turned on and everything else. And in the end, we're a finance company too. So we're financing everything. So, as we grew, I was a salesperson. I was out front. Lisa was in back. She was doing collection service and everything else. And what we struggled with when we started to expand outside of where I could be all the time was delivering on the operations, right? And as an entrepreneur, you think you're great at everything. And it was very tough for me to finally admit I couldn't fix my operations. I wasn't good enough in that area to be able to run a large organization installing solar systems. I was great getting the sales in. I knew what needed to happen in operations, but I wasn't able to get that going. And it took us too long when we started to bring in real professionals and spend the money to be able to deliver on our promises. And now, we're really good because we brought some really good people in. And I think that's one of the pitfalls that we all fall into as our businesses grow, is not identifying the areas that we're not as good at, or we're weak in, or we don't have experience in, and go out and spend the money to bring in somebody to really deliver on that. And that's, you said it earlier, right? When you first go out and it's kind of scary and you're overwhelmed. And I remember the first time we flew to New York City, and I'm on Madison Avenue, right? Getting in, going into these buildings where you got to show your driver's license. You go up to the 80th floor and you're overlooking the Hudson River, and these guys are in there, ladies are in there, and they do these deals all the time. And you don't even understand some of the words they're using. It's one thing when I'm on a Zoom back then and I could look up an acronym, or I could look up a word that somebody was utilizing, but just understanding the vernacular, it takes a lot to stop somebody and say, can you please explain that, or I don't understand it. We have a tendency not to want to be embarrassed, or not to want that person to think they're smarter than us or whatever. So we just nod our heads, and you can't. You have to, you've got to have the intelligence to say, I don't understand this. I need you to explain this. Tell me how that works. Right.
And
because it's very difficult.
Yeah, the humility has to go with that, right? Because sometimes our egos get the best of us in these situations. And like, I definitely agree with you that it's funny when I went on my first road show with Arthur Anderson when we were doing an IPO of a company, and I was sitting there and my head was spinning. And I had a degree in accounting, and I had already been working in finance and accounting, and my head was spinning. I was writing so many terms down I had never even heard in my career at that point, right? Because I'm still wet behind the ears myself. And so I love how you're talking about this. So you go out to market, you raise the money, you realize that my projections are wrong, my revenue's been overstated, right? And then our operations have found it much more challenging to get that in place, because you built a business model, and that business model, you have to deliver that to your customer. And you're trying to deliver that the same way you did in Louisiana and all these other places. And you're running into all these problems and cost.
Right. And so that's the biggest thing. And I would tell people, boy, most of us as entrepreneurs underinvest in people to really do financial analytics for us, right? FP&A, financial planning and analysis is so important, and we don't spend the money on to bring people in. And even if you go out and contract with somebody, that doesn't have a vested interest in you raising money to really look at your numbers and come back and say, no, I think you're wrong. Get somebody to pressure test it and admit when you've reached the plateau, or admit when you need to bring that somebody in. In our case, last year, we brought in a new CEO. I'd grown the company with my wife, Lisa, and we had gotten to $200 million from zero, 5 employees out in New Orleans East and no revenue, to over $200 million. And at a certain point in time, you sit down with your board of directors and say, well, where do you want to go? We want to be $1 billion company. How do you go from 200 million to $1 billion? The biggest company I'd ever run before this was about $30 million. And that was, to me, that was a very large company. And then you have to make those difficult decisions. Can I take a step back and become the chairman of the board and be a support role and bring in somebody that has taken a company from 200 million to $1 billion? Yep. And if you can admit that, think of what you're doing for the company. Think about, and you said it earlier, David, when I think about payroll, I think I have to make sure all of my employees are able to feed their families and they take home the money. And as a entrepreneur, sometimes you don't get to take a paycheck. Well, even when you're $200 million and you're not worried about getting the next paycheck, how are you taking that responsibility you have for all of those team members and honoring that? And in our case, it was bringing in a new CEO and hiring Peter Schaefer to be the face of PosiGen to take that next step to $1 billion.
Yeah,
those things are tough.
And I love how you're talking about this, because it's very interesting when you go into companies. And I was thinking about this yesterday, and one of my clients, they have a great controller, and they promoted her to CFO, and she's not qualified to be the CFO. They promoted her because she was there, and she's done a good job, and she's a hard worker, and she's dedicated. all these things that on her behavior side, core value side, she's there, right? On the ability to do the job, I'm questioning this decision. I mean, I can only advise my client and talk to them and ask them questions, but I can't tell them what to do. But this is probably one of the most common mistakes I see made. And so when you're growing, you have to have to understand that at certain times I have to take a step up in my fixed cost so I can get to the next step in revenue, right? And I love how you talked about it, because at 200 million, you and your wife had grown a $30 million company. Now you're at 200 million, a lot different. Now you want to take it to $1 billion, right? And how am I going to do that? Hey, it's not me. That's not my forte. I've done my forte. Now I can go out and I can still be an advocate for the company. I can sell for the company. I can still be all the things I was for this company. But then I can let more qualified people that understand this level of a business take it over and make it successful with me.
Right. And that's the whole thing. And you hit on two pieces there, right? When you need to bring in those individuals that can help elevate you, but also the other piece is when you're running a $50 million company, you make somebody a vice president because they've been with you a long time. Maybe it was or was not the right decision, but when that $50 million company becomes a $200 million company, they might not have that same skill set. That doesn't make them a bad person, and it doesn't make you a bad person because they've been loyal to you for 10 years, but if you leave them in a role that they can't deliver on, then you're doing a disservice to all the rest of the team members. So you always have to put, your investors, your team members, your customers, you have to think of them as a whole, and then go to an individual that you love and has been loyal to you and say, I don't think this is the right role. You're still valuable to us. Let's see if we can find another spot for you. Right person, wrong seat.
Yeah. And I love how you talked about it. I want to talk about one real quick thing before you get off. You talked about having an advisor. That's what we do here at Assured Strategy is we help people with that independent advisor, because we don't take a fee on the actual deal itself. We're just collecting our fee that we would normally get. And then we help clients put this in realistic terms. It's like making sure the projections are correct. Making sure that we've stress test them so we understand what the best case scenario is, the worst case scenario, and the most likely, right? And so we help them with those types of things. So I wanted to say that, but I wanted to also talk to you and say thank you for coming on and talking about this problem, because this is such a rampant problem, and you try to help people understand it, and they end up not using you because you tell them honestly that they're not going to get it done in 6 months. And I can't tell you how many people have come back to me and actually had me help with their company because I was honest with them, and they didn't get the deal done even for a year sometimes, right? Because they trusted these 3 months people, and they end up wasting a whole bunch of time with them and money.
Let me tell you what, David, there used to be, I'm old, right? There used to be a commercial with the mechanic, pay me now for preventive maintenance or pay me later when your engine falls out. If we had spent the $10,000 or $20,000 or $50,000, whatever that number is, to engage a company such as you, to really help us look at our projections, to really be realistic about the time frame and everything else, it would have saved us millions of dollars. And the equity that I have at the end would have been much higher. And then as the company has a liquidity event, the dollars that come back, it's so exponential. What you invest in the front end to get professionals to come in and help you that are not tied to the deal, right? That are not tied to the deal. It really is a game changer. And I would encourage everyone out there, bring somebody in like David, help them, let them help you.
Yeah. Thank you. And I thank you for that, because I think that you surrounded yourself with some really great advisors too. Tom Neyhart. So now I'm back to 50-50. Tom, you know what? We hadn't met before this show, and I'm very grateful Warren introduced you to us. And I really appreciate you spending your very valuable time coming and sharing some of your wisdom with some of the people about 4,000 people listen to these shows on average. And I think that 4,000 business owners you may have helped with this show. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you for having me, Dave. I really appreciate it. It was great talking to you.
All right. This is the Strategy Sherpa Show. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back after these messages.
Welcome back to the Strategy Sherpa Show with David Chavez. Have a question for David or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show.
Hello, everybody. This is David Chavez. I'm back on the show and just had Tom Neyhart. I want to say that correctly this time because I abused his name several times when he was there. What a valuable show. This is going to go down as one of probably my better shows just from the standpoint of the topic and Tom's candidness around it. His candidness was refreshing. He's a $400 million company now. He's obviously done a very good job of getting people in positions. And he talked a little bit about having the right advisors at the right time to really scale. As an entrepreneur, we think we understand everything. And the financial world is a very dangerous world for somebody who doesn't understand it very well, So I really appreciate him coming on and sharing how his projections were way off. And he said it cost him millions of extra dollars. And a lot of, I always say to myself, when I make a mistake, I have to go and pluck the feathers off the crow and throw the crow in the microwave and then sit there and eat some crow. Sound like Tom ate a little crow there because you go out and you tell people you're going to do this. And as an entrepreneur, I'm sure he believed he could do these things. And because he has a set of projections he's trying to hit, he ends up running into all these roadblocks he didn't anticipate. Probably didn't have very good market data on everything, or maybe he did and didn't really understand how to read it as well, or some of the people that were putting together the projections didn't really understand it as well. And what ended up happening is these pie in the sky numbers ended up costing him a little bit with the trust that he had built with some of his investors. And that's not a good feeling to have if you're an entrepreneur, because entrepreneurs, although we believe in what we're doing, we try to be factual and try to say what we are actually going to do. And then when we don't do it, we feel very bad about that because we want to live up to our word. That's very important to us. And it's not that you're trying not to live up to your word. It's just that maybe I could have done a little bit better job on those projections and really planned them. And the other thing I love that he said is that he said, these deals take a lot longer than you think. And it sounds like he had a really good investment banker, because the investment banker didn't tell him that everything was going to happen tomorrow. And I've seen this happen. I'm working a deal with a client right now. Actually, we're going through a transaction and we have an investment banker has come into the deal and they weren't involved right at first. And now this investment banker is telling his client that my client's really not that important, and he could go out and find a whole bunch of people that'll probably pay a lot more for the company. And what I told my client to do is just sit back and wait now, because this investment banker, they're obviously hard salespeople and they're not going to be able to deliver. And I just told my client just to be patient. And here it is 3 months later, and the client called him back, and he's on back on conversations with my client, because everything the investment banking firm said they were going to do, it's not getting done. And I think that that's really important, and a reason why you need to pay attention to who you hire and take your time, Tom said. Because if you don't take your time, then you may end up with the wrong person. But I wanted to talk about a couple of things, because if you're deciding to go out and raise money, one of the things you need to pay attention to is the valuation of your company. And if you get on a Strategy website and you look at the free offers tab, we have a get your free valuation right there, and you can actually get a valuation for your company. Now, this isn't a valuation where you can take to a bank or anything like that. But as a business owner, I don't need valuations that I take to a bank every year. But every year, I should probably get a valuation done on my company to see how I'm raising the value of my company, so I truly understand what it's worth. 80% of the entrepreneurs out there think they're going to sell their business when it's time to end, and 80% of them never get sold. Why don't they get sold? Because the owner never paid attention to the valuation. They never really increased the value of the company. And they didn't do that because they didn't pay attention to the value of the company. They just assumed that there's some multiple out there that they've heard for their industry, like 5 times revenue or whatever it is, or 5 times EBITDA or 8 times EBITDA or whatever it is. These are rule of thumb numbers. These are not factual numbers. And the valuation we're going to give you is a little bit more factual and to the point. So take a look at that. And then I wanted to remind you, we do have the Scaling Up workshop, and that is on the 25th of June in San Diego, California. Please join. Warren and I, we're going to be doing that there. And then on the 18th of July, we have Peak Performance, Unleash Your Potential with learning about performance coaching. And Warren's going to do that. And then on July 30th, Ted Servata and I are going to be doing a whole workshop on or a webinar on financial forecasting. So that should be very valuable too. This is the Strategy Sherpa Show. And thank Tom Neyhart. I just did it again, Neyhart. For coming on and sharing his wisdom with us. And Tom, I am sorry I badgered your name, and please forgive me. But very good show today, and I really appreciated him coming on. And thank you very much for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week.